The transformation of Moses. You may have seen the trending quote, "God doesn't call the prepared. God prepares the called." And that is the case for Moses in many ways. Moses was in exile after committing murder, and the angel of the Lord appeared in burning bush. Moses was very insecure about his speech and refuses his calling at first, to a point to anger God. And Moses said unto the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither heretofore nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant. But I am slow of speech and of a slow tongue. And the Lord said unto him, Who hath made man's mouth? Or who maketh the dumb, or deaf, or the seeing, or the blind? Have not I the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with thy mouth, and teach thee what thou shalt say. Exodus 4. And Moses saw his brother Aaron to be much more eloquent in speech. However, throughout the Bible we see the transformation of Moses as God equips Moses along the way. He starts with a staff and few miracles and trains Moses to deliver God's messages to Pharaoh. Then God gives the 10 Commandments to Moses. Then God, the highest judge, speaks to Moses directly to put laws in place from the highest courts of heaven and orders Moses to speak to Israelites directly on his behalf as his spokesperson, as this is before Jesus' time in the Bible. And they were not some minor office policies, but laws that can make or break lives. He said, Speak to the Israelites and say to them, Leviticus 1. It did not matter to God that Moses saw himself slow of speech. Moses is transformed through his leadership and becoming more advanced in his role God had appointed. In contrast, in Leviticus 10, Aaron is silenced at the presence of God due to his sons, committing sin against God and consumed by fire. As we have seen in Exodus, Aaron and his family disobeyed God and did not follow his directions for worship and sacrifice. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. To obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed is better than the fat of rams. 1 Samuel 15. After 40 long years of service to the Lord in the wilderness, Moses does not make to the promised land. In my narrow human understanding, it was hard for me to understand this part and interpretation by many. And as I reread the Exodus over and over again, some more understanding came by the grace of God. Moses broke faith with God in the instructions God gave him in Numbers 20, where God asked to speak. But Moses in his anger struck the rock twice instead. Not only that, he spoke to Israelites with words God did not instruct him. Moses said to them, Listen, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock? Then Moses raised his arm and struck the rock twice with his staff, what seems somewhat reasonable and minor in our eyes, with everything Moses has gone through. With Israelites complaining and being rebellious to him for decades, God saw it, as did not treat me as holy among the sons of Israel. Is this a waking up moment for you? It was for me reading this again. God has his own measurements, and this act of brief anger and disobedience of striking the rock, instead of following details of God's instructions to speak to it, was sin to God and prevented Moses from entering the promised land. In your anger, do not sin, Ephesians 4. Moses did not harm anyone in this act, but he did not adhere to God's instruction completely. He refused to speak at the beginning, when God appointed him, and did not obey to speak this time. Now therefore go, and I will be with thy mouth and teach thee what thou shalt say. Exodus 4 and 10-12. Moses angered God when he was appointed to lead Israelites in the beginning, with his insecurity of speaking and self-esteem, and now is disobedient again through his anger and hasteness. After God had reminded Moses, he was the one forming Moses' mouth, and that he will be with Moses in speaking. This was not only disobedience, but a failure to exalt God's power and his word. God saw it as did not treat me as holy among the sons of Israel. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, Because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them. Numbers 20:12. And Moses was a man of temper. He had murdered an Egyptian before called to his duty as a leader, and had also broken tablets of 10 commandments out of anger when he saw the golden calf in idolatry. And his rod was God's rod. It was not to be used in a way without God's will and instructions, a shepherd's rod and staff. Like King David, Moses was also a shepherd in the wilderness of Midian, before being called to lead Israelites out of Egypt. Your rod to protect and your staff to guide, they comfort and console me. Psalm 23. It was not to be used in a way not instructed by God or in violence and anger like Egyptians have. In Genesis, God also spoke. He did not use tools for his creation. And God said, Let there be light, and there was light. Genesis 1. This speaking things into existence by faith is what differentiates the divine power of God from other man-made gods and tools of this world. Egyptian gods had rods too, which they used to oppress Israelites. Their magicians performed similar magic. God called Moses and was training him over time to gain more authority in his speaking instead of relying on his staff, and he required complete obedience. Not fear, not anger, not self-doubt, and not disobedience. No matter how reasonable it may be in our human thinking, we must be very careful in our leadership to be completely aligned with God. Do we also rely on tools and technology of this world instead of following God's instructions in complete surrender and obedience? I have in the past. Do we also say things God did not instruct us to say? As for God, it's not all about the result or the performance, but our faith and obedience. God speaks through Moses in a song of how he will charge for sin of their idolatry and rebellion in Exodus 32, and also blessings for his people in Exodus 33. God is exalted in his timing. I share more about this topic in my upcoming book and will be released after pastoral reviews and editing. Excerpt from Chapter 1, Moses from new book, The Unfit Leaders. Like and follow for more and watch. Linked shorts for the physical transformation of Moses through his leadership next. Thank you for watching.